Hi everyone, my name's Leah and I'm going to tell you today about my fasting experience with Doug Graham. How did I find about his retreat? I went to Woodstock Fruit Festival last year in 2013 and I went to his lecture on water fasting. I had been on 80-10-10 for 1 year by that time, and I was living with a condition called ulcerative colitis. So I went to his lecture and he told amazing testimonies, and so after the lecture I was so inspired and he sold it to me. I wanted to go fast. To cut a long story short, I decided when I came back to Australia that I needed to do this to heal myself and live a proper life. So, and I also wanted to do Doug's course that he has. It's a health and fitness course, so I would be a health and fitness coach once I finish the course. And part of the course is actually to do the water fast and to do the walking tour. So I had ulcerative colitis. I wanted to do his course, so I was killing two birds with one stone, really. So I thought, well, this is it. So there was an application process that I had to do to be accepted to fast. And because I was doing the course, I only had to pay half. So I paid half of the fast and half of the walking tour, and then I'd pay the rest when I'd be doing my course after I'd finished the fast. So I paid $8,000 to do it, and the rest of the $8,000 I could pay off. So I had to fill out an application form, and this is the screening test, I guess. They asked you certain questions, and if Doug doesn't think you should fast because of your answers to the questions, he'll let you know. I filled out the application form and sent it off. I told Doug in it that I have ulcerative colitis, I've been bleeding for a year, and send off the email. Within 5 minutes of sending off that email, I got an email back from him saying, you're going to fast. And naturally, I was excited. I'm like, yes, I'm going to fast and I'm going to heal and I'm going to get better and it's just going to be all great. I also signed a waiver when I filled out the application form. Yes, how stupid was I? But this is the only reason I can give you. I was desperate. I wasn't living a life like with this condition. So that's what I did. I signed the waiver, and I thought nothing's going to happen to me because I'd been told by my good friend Grant Campbell, who lives in Australia, and I've been to his retreats, and I valued and trusted what he said, and he said, don't fast with anyone else but Doug. Doug is the best person to fast with. It's very dangerous if you fast with anyone else, and badmouth other fasting retreats. But if you fast with Doug, it will be the best, and he wouldn't recommend anyone else. So naturally, I thought I'm in good hands. I didn't question once that something might go wrong. So I paid $8,000. I paid a $2,000 ticket to Costa Rica. I took 2 months off work, and I went over to Costa Rica and fasted for 25 days. My fasting experience was horrendous. It was the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. Not because I felt hungry, it was because I was in pain every single day, and I had diarrhea every single day I fasted, bloody diarrhea, bleeding the whole time I fasted. And in pain, I didn't sleep well, but I was in this for the long haul, and people that know me know that I don't complain about things, and I'll just get it done. So, with all this happening, I was just like, I'm not going to come all the way over here and let this pain and diarrhea stop me from what I'm here to do. And so I fasted, and the whole time I fasted, as I said, I was in pain all the time. I was extremely nauseous, and I couldn't drink water properly. Every time I drink water, one sip of water, I'd feel nauseous, my stomach would swish, and then I'd be on the toilet. So every time I drink, I'd be on the toilet, and that was really tough to try and get the water in. So I was gradually getting dehydrated every single day. So I would express my concerns to Doug, and they weren't concerned about me. They just said, no, like, you could, like, when you're having this much diarrhea, there is a concern that you lose your electrolytes. But he wasn't concerned at that point. But that happened for 25 days. And when I broke my fast, and when I decided I was going to break my fast, I was just so relieved. I remember crying, just thinking, yes, this is over. This whole experience is finally over, and I can now start regaining my health and my strength. Because from day 15 to day 25, I was completely nauseous. I couldn't move at night without feeling sick or going to the toilet to have diarrhea. I remember lying in bed, not moving once, not even moving my neck or anything, just lying there still so I wouldn't feel nauseous and sick. And even then, like, I still felt sick. But and going to lectures, I would pretty much shut myself off from everyone else there. I wouldn't talk to people. I didn't have the energy to talk to people. I was seriously ill and trying to just make it to the next day, and get through this. And so when I finally decided I was going to break on day 25, I thought, yes, this is it. And you can see how emotional I get. I'll show a clip now of the time I decided I was going to break.
Hello, it's Leah coming to you from Costa Rica. It's day 25. I haven't filmed since day 16 because I've been really sick. But I have good news. I'm breaking today. I'm so excited. It's been a really tough journey. But I made it and I'm so excited. So yeah.
So I broke in my fast and things were getting worse and worse. I was going to the toilet a lot more, like I was having diarrhea 17 times a day. And I still couldn't really drink water. Like, I would try and drink. I knew I was getting dehydrated. I knew it. And also, like, I didn't have an appetite to eat any food, which you'd naturally think you would, but I didn't want to eat food. It was so hard for me to eat food. And every time I did eat, I knew I'd be on the toilet later on with diarrhea, or I'd be throwing up, and I hated throwing up. The throwing up was way worse than any other thing I'd experienced, because I was so weak, and my body was like screaming at me when I was like over the toilet. And I've never felt so alone in my life, being over in a country, not knowing anyone. And I just remember when I was throwing up, one night, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was over the toilet throwing up. And I felt so alone and helpless and like I was going to die. I had nothing in me, my whole body, like I seriously had no energy left, and I remember feeling like, this is it, like I'm not going to get better. Like, I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I thought once I started eating again, I'd feel better, but it didn't happen. And I'm just so glad my mum got there and took me to hospital. So Josh naturally started getting concerned when he'd get phone calls from me saying that I felt like I was dying, because he knows I don't complain when I'm sick or hurting. I was there for a reason, and that was it. So when I started saying, like, I don't know how much longer I can do this, I want to stop, I just want it to be over, like, I feel like I'm dying, he started getting really concerned about me, and he started to email Doug and say, is Leah okay? And he emailed Grant as well, because he knows Grant personally. And he'd say, can you please go check on Leah as my friend? Go check on Leah and make sure she's okay. And they didn't, they just fobbed it off, saying, oh no, she'll be right, she'll turn a corner soon, don't worry about her, she'll be fine. And Josh emailed Grant and said, no, go check on Leah, she needs, I'm really worried about her. And you know what Grant did? He didn't go check on me. He just went and talked to Doug and said, like, he must ask him how I was doing, and he didn't come check on me. He just asked Doug because Doug knows everything, right? And he admitted to this later on, that he never went and checked on me, and that he just asked Doug, and Doug said everything was going to be fine. I also had other fasters there who were concerned about me and were questioning whether I needed medical attention. That Doug will let me know when he's concerned about you. By the way, Doug never came and checked on me, not once. The only communication I had with Doug was through the interns. And the only times that Doug came to me was when I was throwing up one night and I told my roommate, go get Doug, I need help. Like, he just told me pretty much when I was throwing up that, oh yeah, I threw up once when I fasted and it's a terrible experience, and everything was going to be okay. I'm just going through a rough patch. And so, okay, that's what I thought. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not getting better. Like, I'd been eating for a week by now. Nothing had changed. I was getting worse. The people who I broke my fast with, which was Giovanna and a girl named Jess, who I adore, and they really helped me actually the whole time I fasted. They were running loops around a track, like walking, running, doing like weights and everything. I couldn't even walk 2 steps without passing out and falling down to the ground. That's how bad I was. And I was a fit person before. So for me, this was a real red flag. Like, why are they so far? Why am I so far behind everyone else? Like, everyone's getting, like, recovering and I'm still not even being able to walk. I couldn't hear properly. I'd pass out at breakfast because when I'd eat, I'd just get really lightheaded and I'd have to lie down on the ground. And no one else was doing this. No one else. So there were people that were concerned about me, but this is the scary thing. No one questioned Doug's advice. Whatever Doug said, that's what it was. They knew that I lost a lot of blood, so they knew that my iron levels were down. And so they were putting me on straight celery and romaine juice, and just green juice. And so I drink that, but there was no, I'd throw it up and I would have diarrhea. Nothing that was going in was staying in. And also my heart was palpitating very, very fast. And that would keep me up at night. I couldn't sleep. Like, I'd just be lying there and it would just be thumping and thumping. And that was really scary. A wonderful intern, Vicky, Vicky, she was just amazing. Like, the interns were beautiful and they helped me so much emotionally, but they don't have medical knowledge and they didn't know that I was really ill. How would they know? They were just going off what Doug was telling them. So, like, there were interns there that they did help. Like, I could talk to them and I could cry and they were there emotionally support. But I needed serious medical attention. But anyway, getting back to Vicky was one of the interns, and she actually, my roommate, that had to get moved because I would keep her up all night because I was on the toilet all night. And so she was getting tired and I was getting tired. I was exhausted from getting up all the time going. So Vicky had stayed with me for 3 nights before my mum came. And then once my mum came, my mum was going to stay with me. But Vicky said to me, the only time Doug wants me to go get him is when you're on the floor, you've passed out, and you're bleeding uncontrollably. That's when he'll be concerned about you. So until then, we're just going to keep going on, and he's not concerned that he's not concerned enough yet for anything to happen. So until I was passed out on the floor, bleeding uncontrollably, nothing was going to be done. But the night that my mum got there and I started throwing up again, and she's like, that's it. I'm going to talk to Doug, and that was really late at night. And she was really concerned about me, and she went to Doug, and Grant pretty much said, "He's sure you need to bother him, he's got a big day tomorrow." While she was talking to Grant, because they're both staying in the same room, Doug slipped out the door, which she thought he was going to the toilet. He slipped out the door, so he came into my cabin without my mum knowing, and he tried to convince me not to go to hospital and to stay. Because he thought my mum was over-exaggerating and that I didn't need to go to hospital, and that if I just stayed 3 or 4 more days, he could turn me around. I'd been there for 6 weeks and nothing had changed. I'd gotten worse. I don't know how he thought he was going to turn me around. The walking tour was starting the next day, and they're all going on this walk, and I couldn't walk. I could hardly walk to go to the toilet without passing out. He told my mum, "You're the worst combination. You're a mother and you're a nurse," because my mum used to be a nurse. So we caught a 5-hour taxi ride to the hospital the next morning. That taxi ride was probably one of the hardest times of my life. I threw up bile and dry reached the whole 4 hours of that trip. And I had this plastic bag, and I'd just be throwing up. And my eyes were sunken into my head. I was dehydrated. I hadn't drunk one bit of water and I'd been throwing up and having diarrhea. I hadn't drank one bit of water, and I was sucking on oranges to try and get some moisture in me, and that just made me throw up more. When we finally got to hospital after the taxi driver got lost for half an hour and he didn't really speak any English, I get to hospital and we go into the emergency. I'm in a wheelchair, go into the emergency, and the whole emergency room was full of people. And at this point, I know I'm getting close. I'm getting close to death. And I was thinking, if I don't see someone soon, I'm not going to live. And so as soon as they saw me, even though there was a whole room of other people, they took me in straight away. As soon as my mum signed some papers, showed them our passports, and they took me in straight away. 4 nurses came to me straight away, tapping my whole body, trying to find a vein to put in an IV fluid. And I was just praying, please let them find it. I was so dehydrated. You cannot find veins when you're dehydrated. They were trying everywhere, in my feet, in my arms. They finally got one in my left arm, and I started getting pumped with fluid, and my whole body started spasming. And the first doctor came and saw me, and he didn't know, it was too much for him. He said, like, "Where have you been? Like, who let you get in this condition? What were you doing?" And he said to me, have you been fasting? And at that point, I was still in Doug's spell, because Doug told me not to tell them I'd fasted. He said, "Oh, well, it's not necessary to tell them that you fasted, because technically you have been eating for a week and a half, so you don't need to mention that you fasted." So when the doctor asked me, "Have you fasted?" I said no. I said, no, I've just had a chronic diarrhea and vomiting. That's what Doug and that told me to tell them. So I was doing that, and he just said, "This is too much. I can't help you. I'm going to have to go hire a doctor up to look at you." So another doctor came and looked at me, and immediately he said to me, "You have a serious infection. The color of your skin, you have an infection." And the blood test results showed that, and he didn't even have the blood test results at that point. And he said, "We need to put you on antibiotics." And this gets funny. I was like, "I can't have antibiotics. I can't do that. That's really bad for me. I can't do antibiotics." And I was nearly dead. And I don't know how my mum or that doctor didn't slap me in the face and saying, "Wake up, are you serious?" Because I said to Mum, I'm like, "I need to call Doug. I need to ask him if it's okay if I take these antibiotics." So she lets me call Doug. And Doug did tell me, "When you get to the hospital, let me know that you got there." So I did. I called him and I said, "Look, Doug, they want to give me antibiotics, and I'm really scared because I think, I've been told by you and all the people, they're all food movement, that antibiotics are really bad for your body and they do more harm than good." And He's like, no, that's okay. They can give you the antibiotics, and just make sure that you get out of the hospital as soon as possible. We don't want you there for very long because, that's the worst place you could be right now. And I'm like, okay. So that was when I first got to hospital, and they asked to put me on antibiotics. I was admitted into hospital. They found I had a serious bacterial infection. I turned septic. My blood was septic, and they found a bacteria in my gut that was called Eromonas from the water that I'd been drinking, and it ripped right through me. Along with that, I had kidney renal failure, acute kidney renal failure, and my organ had started shutting down already. I was dehydrated, the worst case of dehydration they'd ever seen, of greater than 10% dehydration, and 15% is considered lethal. And I was severely anemic, and my hemoglobin was about 60 when I got to hospital, and it did drop further, and I had to get a blood transfusion from my mum. Luckily, she was the same blood type as me, and I also had to get another blood transfusion by a local Costa Rican lady. I was listed as critical for 3 days in intensive care, and then I came out of intensive care, and then I had another experience which was very traumatic for me that not many people understand, but I had a psychotic episode and had to get locked in a psych ward for 2 days, and they had to sedate me, heavily sedate me, and pretty much put me in a nappy because I was so heavily sedated I couldn't get up and go to the toilet. So that in itself was a whole other mental, emotional, physical trauma that I've experienced because of what happened to me. And this is why I'm making the video. People need to be aware of what can happen, and be aware that when you're going to these places, at Doug's retreat, there is no blood testing. There is no one with any medical knowledge. They didn't know that I had a bacterial infection. They didn't know that I was severely anemic. I mean, they knew I'd lost blood. So you just need to be aware of this. And if I can stop this from happening to someone else, then I'm happy I made this video. So another thing that happened was my fiance had to fly from Australia to Costa Rica to pretty much bring me home, because at that point the doctors were saying they didn't know whether they could save me or not, because I was so severely dehydrated, and they had to make sure they rehydrated me very, very slowly, otherwise I could get swelling of the brain. And so they made a decision that Josh was going to come, and my mom hadn't slept for days, like 4 days she hadn't slept, and she needed help from someone. So Josh decided that he was going to come over and bring us home. And so we had to fork out another $5,000 for Josh to come over and take us home. So when we got back to Australia, the story continues. I was in and out of hospital. I spent weeks in hospital, couldn't go back to work, was severely ill still, severely anemic. I actually had to have another blood transfusion back here in Australia, and also an iron infusion as well. So I just wasn't picking up, and this infection I got, it killed me. Like, my body, from fasting, from getting the infection, from being anemic, from my organs shutting down, my body had just experienced trauma, and I was just not recovering. And it's been 6 months, and I'm still not back to where I should be. I'm still anemic, which I'm getting a lot better. And so naturally, I've had all these medical bills, expenses, and so I asked Doug for a refund. And my mum got a refund, by the way. She asked for a refund, and she got one. We didn't ask for the refund until about a month after we got back, because I was still so ill, and she got a refund. So I asked for a refund, and Doug didn't get back to me. Or he did. He said, please give me a few days. And then this is what I need to tell you. He actually ended up writing an email to me saying, would you please sign a non-disclosure agreement, a type settlement. So pretty much he was going to pay me to shut up and not say anything to anyone. And you know what? I said no. I'm not going to sign it. And that means I didn't get my refunds. After I told him no, I'm not going to sign it, he then responded to me saying, well, our policy is you have to ask for a refund within 48 hours of arriving at the event, so therefore you can't get a refund because you didn't ask for a refund 48 hours. So first he was going to give me one, but he wanted me to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Then I said no, but then he came back and said, well, then our policy states that you can't because you did not request a refund within 48 hours, even though he had paid my mum a refund a month after we came back to Australia. And he may have good health advice, and I do still follow 80-10-10. I still believe that's a great diet, great lifestyle. So anyway, after all that, to wrap it up, people need to know that if you go to Doug's fasting retreat, there is no blood testing done. There's no one there with medical knowledge if you end up in a situation like I did, because there were other fasters there that they were fine. Like, they didn't have any health issues and they didn't get sick like I did, and they were fine. But for someone who gets sick, just be aware that there's no one there that's going to look after you if you get really ill, because I was critically ill and I ended up in hospital because my mum came over to do the walking tour thinking she's going to have a lovely experience with her daughter, to find her come to the retreat and she's nearly dead. And I'm going to Thailand next year, and I hope to see people at the Thai Fruit Festival, because I'm going there for a month next year and hopefully staying around to experience that. So I'll see you then.